Hi everyone, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well, and I've got to prepare you for today's case because, oh my God, this video is going to make you so angry. Because back in 2015, a truly evil woman named Jennifer Rosenbaum fostered a sweet, innocent young girl called Layla Daniel. And it turns out that Jennifer had actually been a foster child herself. And she didn't have it easy growing up, not at all. And she'd overcome a lot of her struggles. She now had a very successful career. She actually was a politician.
Unfortunately for my groups and myself, I won't be here on the December 16th meeting. I'll be on a cruise in Aruba.
So you would think because Jennifer has been through the foster care system, been there, done that, suffered, and now she wants to foster a child herself, you would think, wow, this is going to work out so perfectly. Jennifer knows the struggles of being a foster child, and surely she would want to provide a better childhood to another foster child. However, that could not be further from the truth because Jennifer is pure evil. She fostered little Layla Daniel for the sole purpose of making her life miserable, just to torment her, torture her, abuse her. And it's just something that I cannot wrap my head around. Like, why? So that is what we are getting into today. So let's jump in. And I just want to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, and that is Matchmasters. Matchmasters is a mobile game that I have been obsessed with recently. I haven't been able to put it down. And if you guys haven't ever heard of Matchmasters, you need to go and check it out. Matchmasters is a really cute match 3 puzzle game where you have to match 3 pieces of the same color to defeat your opponent. It is really engaging. It really tests your brain. And the best thing about Matchmasters is that it is the only match 3 game in the world where players compete with each other, which means that you are playing against real people, not a computer. You can be playing people from all over the world in the US, Japan, Australia, the UK. In fact, there is even a chance that one of you guys could be playing against me, and that is just so weird. You can also play directly against your friends. I love playing against my husband, Ashley. I'm actually going to start a game with him right now. And see, I'm playing against Ashley right now and he's winning. As usual, he's always better at mobile games than me. And there are so many ways to play: one-on-one, solo challenges, match rumble, tournaments. You can even join teams, climb the leaderboard, earn trophies and rewards. There is just so much to do. And Matchmasters really is the perfect game when you're out in the world and you just feel overwhelmed and you just need a distraction, a quick distraction, which is a huge reason why I love to play mobile games, because I just want to be distracted. I want to be completely engaged. And with a game like Matchmasters, you can just pick it up, you can play it for a few minutes, and it just really calms me down. And if you wanted to check out Matchmasters for yourself, go to the link in my description box or just scan the QR code that is on your screen right now. And using that link really does help out this channel because it lets Matchmasters know that you came from this video. And once you have downloaded Matchmasters for free, you will get a special welcome pack full of surprises. So thank you again to Matchmasters for sponsoring today's video, but thank you to every single one of you watching right now, because truly without all of you guys, I wouldn't get opportunities like this. And now let's jump into today's case. Jennifer Rosenbaum was born on the 17th of November 1988, making her a Scorpio, and she grew up in Henry County, Georgia, where she lived with her family. Now, not much is actually known about Jennifer's biological family. The only thing we know is that they were abusive towards her. Jennifer and her siblings would be beaten at all times for just the smallest infraction of her parents' rules. Jennifer and her siblings were also neglected, quite often left without food. They were never shown love, care, never received any positive attention. Jennifer's parents were also homeless quite a lot, which meant that Jennifer was also homeless. Jennifer would spend quite a lot of time on the streets, living just on the street or in a tent or maybe in an abandoned car, which meant that she went without a lot of basics: toilet, running water, food. There was just absolutely no stability at all for Jennifer in her early childhood. And in 1997, when Jennifer was 9 years old, this is when Jennifer and her siblings were finally removed from her parents and taken into social services and placed in the foster care system. And that just blows my mind that it took until Jennifer was 9 years old for her to be taken off her parents. So now Jennifer herself is in the foster care system, which, given what happens in today's case, is very, very significant. significant. Now, things were obviously better for Jennifer now that she was in the foster care system, but they still weren't great. She still had a very traumatic childhood. She bounced around from one foster family to the next because she could never find a family that wanted to adopt her full time. And because of this, because of just all of the chaos and the trauma that she has been through, Jennifer developed into a problematic child. She had a lot of behavioral problems. She was known to be a, quote, smart mouth. She just always was arguing with her carers. She also became quite aggressive to other children, whether that was other children that were also in the same foster home as her or other children at her school. She was just described as very aggressive for a child. She was the kind of child that you couldn't tell them what to do. There was no kind of like discipline or anything like that. She did whatever she wanted, whenever she wanted. And it was whilst Jennifer was in foster care that she would meet someone very significant to today's case. And this was another young girl in the foster care system named Tessa Daniel. Now, Tessa was a few years younger than Jennifer, and Tessa had also had a very tough upbringing. She had also faced neglect because of her parents, and then because of that, she then found herself in the foster care system. So Jennifer and Tessa, they found themselves in the same foster home, but they only lived together for a few months because both of them were bouncing around different homes. So even though they're in the same foster home, they were only together for a few months, and that is very significant, so remember that. And when they were in foster care together, they were never best friends. I mean, they wouldn't be, would they? They only spent a few months together. How can you actually form a very close bond with someone if you're only with them for a few months? They were described as friendly to one another, but not friends. Not enemies either, just acquaintances. And there's not much to say about their relationship because they practically didn't have one. And all of this is very significant, so remember this and remember Tessa's name. So as time passes on, Jennifer is still in the foster care system and she still faces a lot of adversity. However, it was when Jennifer was in her later teenage years, she left the foster care system and she decided that she was going to completely turn her life around. So Jennifer, she's currently 18 years old and she decides to join the military. She served in the military for about 2 years and she worked really hard, and all of the money that she earned, she saved it all. And then when she was 20 years old, she enrolled in Clayton State University using the savings that she had saved up while she was in the military. And whilst she was in university, she actually continued to serve in the military alongside of her studies. And Jennifer was a very high achiever. That is very impressive, to be such a high achiever in university and be in full-time education and still serve part-time in the military and still achieve a lot in the military as well. She actually worked her way up to being a military police officer. And whilst all of this is going on, Jennifer entered into her first significant relationship. And this is with a man called Joseph Rosenbaum. And the two of them hit it off straight away. It was love at first sight. Joseph also actually came from a military family, so they definitely had that connection. Joseph's mom was actually in service, like currently still serving in the military when Jennifer was there. And by some weird coincidence, Jennifer and Joseph's mom, Mary, they were placed on active duty together. They both stayed in the same barracks together. And it's like, what the hell? What are the chances of that? That Jennifer is dating Joseph and his mom is staying in the same barracks as her. That is definitely a very unique situation to be in. And eventually, at some point down the line, Jennifer did leave the military. She was still with Joseph and they settled down and got married. And just a heads up, Joseph is just as evil as Jennifer. Maybe not as evil, but pretty close. And this is when Jennifer decided that she wanted to become a politician. And unfortunately, Jennifer becoming a politician allowed her to get away with a lot of things. She used her power and influence for evil. So Jennifer, she got herself into law school. She also joined the Young Republicans. She started going out on the street campaigning. She was a very good talker. She definitely talks like a politician, I will say that.
And I just wanted to thank each of the 5 commissioners that were here and that did vote in our favor. I do appreciate that.
She was really good at talking to people. She was really good at making speeches. She was someone that had the natural ability to stand up in front of people and captivate them with her words. She was also a master manipulator, which she definitely uses to her advantage during this case. And whilst Jennifer was at law school, she went on to get her first significant job in politics, which was an internship at Henry County's DA office. And Jennifer would specifically be interning for a woman called Mary Evans Battle, who was the assistant district attorney. She was also a juvenile court judge. She was very powerful. She had a lot of connections. And Mary will also go on to play a huge role in today's case in facilitating Jennifer's evil plans. So whilst Jennifer is at this internship, she starts building a lot of connections herself, networking a lot, making a name for herself. She started sucking up to very powerful politicians in her area. She started doing these politicians favors. She wanted these powerful politicians to feel like they owed her one. She was also campaigning on various issues in her local area, and she gained quite a name for herself. Jennifer even decided to run for a political seat herself. And you can actually see clips of her on YouTube talking, where she takes the podium in front of a board of county commissioners.
Good evening, Chairman and the commissioners. My name is Jennifer Rosenbaum.
And you know how these things go. She's trying to convince them of her views and blah, blah, blah. And it's just so weird to see her take the podium and talk.
Unfortunately for my groups and myself, I won't be here on the December 16th meeting. I'll be on a cruise in Aruba, and Bonaire, Curacao, and Venezuela. So I'll be having a good time, but I'll be hoping that you all will be considering what I'm saying tonight. And I will definitely be hoping that a lot of the community members show up like they did at the zoning board hearing.
Now, I don't know if I'm reading too much into this, because obviously I know how evil she is and I know the kind of person that she is. But whilst I was watching Jennifer, there were times where I could see her mask fall. And I don't know if I am reading too much into this. Am I clutching at straws? I don't know. But I just could see at times when things weren't going her way, she was really struggling to hold her composure. You can definitely see that mask slip when she doesn't get what she wants.
Vote the last meeting. I'm sorry, my time's expired. So unless you will allow me to speak for 30 seconds to finish my sentence, then I will be done.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know. That was just me anyway. But now we get to early 2015. Jennifer is currently in her mid-20s. And right now, she's on the path to have a very successful career. And it was now that Jennifer and Joseph, they decide they want to start a family. However, when it came to having children of their own, they hit a couple of roadblocks because Jennifer's husband, Joseph, had been born with cystic fibrosis. If you are not aware, cystic fibrosis is a condition that causes sticky mucus to build up in the lungs and the digestive system. And it is a very serious condition. It can increase infections in the lungs. Over time, the lungs can stop working properly, and in a lot of cases, it can be fatal. Also, people born with cystic fibrosis have a 98% chance of fertility issues. But not just that, they are likely to pass the condition on to their child. So because of this, Jennifer and Joseph decided that having children themselves, their own biological children, wasn't an option for them. So they decided to become foster parents instead. Now, obviously, Jennifer had been a foster child herself. She said that she wanted to give back to the system. She knew what it was like to be a foster child. She knew what it was like to not feel wanted to bounce around different foster homes, and she didn't want to do that. She wanted to provide a stable home for a child, which to me sounds incredible, but that was not the case. But anyway, I'm getting too far ahead of myself there. So Jennifer, she started making the application to apply to be a foster parent. She filled out all the forms and she used her maiden name, which was Jennifer Holcomb, and she thought that this would be perfectly fine. She didn't see any issues with this, and the system flagged that Jennifer had been a foster child herself. And the system flagged this because she'd used her maiden name. And the background check also revealed that Jennifer had been removed from her biological parents because her biological parents were abusive and neglectful. So because of this, because Jennifer had been a child of abuse and she had also been a foster child herself, her application to be a foster parent was denied. According to the report, children of abuse are more likely to become abusers themselves, which, if you want my opinion, that is not exactly a black and white topic. I don't think you can say that just because a child has been abused, they will become an abuser themselves. I don't think it's that black and white, definitely not. But clearly the background check is looking at it that black and white. So because of this, Jennifer's application to be a foster parent was denied. And Jennifer was furious. But this didn't deter Jennifer at all. No. She made a second application to become a foster parent, this time using her married name. And she knew by using her married name, the background check wouldn't flag that she'd been in foster care, which, to be honest, surely it still would have. It's still on record when you're married and if you change your name and stuff. Surely it still should have flagged the same thing. But this is what I read. Jennifer purposely used her married name so they wouldn't find out that she was a child of abuse and also a child that was in the foster care system herself. Jennifer wanted to do everything in her power to make sure that this application went through. So she kept phoning over and over again the department that handled the foster care applications. She kept demanding that they move quicker, that they review her case quicker, that they push her through the system. She was definitely name dropping a few people that she worked with. She tried to throw her own job title out there, saying that she worked for the DA's office. She made it seem like she was very important and that they should prioritize her application over others. And she was incredibly rude. She would get into rants and arguments with people on the phone. She would swear at the other person on the phone, say all sorts of unnecessary things. And she was pretty aggressive. And because of her aggressive behavior, her second application got denied, which, can you blame them? I mean, what did she expect? If you are going to act aggressive on the phone or in meetings or stuff, do you really think that someone is going to let you foster a child? No. However, now we get to April of 2015, and this is when something incredibly significant occurred, because Jennifer Rosenbaum was about to come in contact with a young girl called Layla Daniel for the very first time. So one day, Jennifer was just at work. She was currently in a courtroom when she came across confidential documents detailing a custodial foster care hearing that had just taken place in the courtroom. And these documents, they're confidential, no one apart from the people directly involved in the case should be looking at these documents. And Jennifer knew this, but Jennifer didn't care. She saw that these documents were regarding a foster care hearing. And as soon as she saw that, she went through the documents. She started flicking through the documents and realized that the subject of the foster care hearing was a 2-year-old girl called Layla Daniel. And Jennifer was fascinated because obviously Jennifer was trying her hardest to foster a child herself. So Jennifer started flicking through the documents even more, and something in the documents stuck out to Jennifer. And that was the name of the biological mother. And that name was Tessa Daniel. And Jennifer was thinking to herself, Tessa Daniel, where do I know that name from? And this is when it dawned on Jennifer that Tessa Daniel was a foster care child herself. The very girl that Jennifer had spent a short period of time when she was a child in foster care together. So remember Tessa? We briefly discussed her earlier on. Tessa and Jennifer had spent a few months together in the same foster home. They were friendly, not friends, basically didn't have a relationship. That is the same Tessa now. Obviously, Tessa is now an adult, and Jennifer was currently looking at documents about Tessa and about the foster care of her 2-year-old daughter, Layla. And Jennifer was thinking, oh my God, this is so surreal. What are the chances that a girl I was in foster care with is now looking for her own child to be placed in foster care? And Jennifer took this as a sign from the universe that all of this must be happening for a reason. And it was at this moment that Jennifer realized that it didn't matter what the cost was. She was going to foster Layla Daniel, and no one could stand in her way. And this is where the case starts to go downhill very quickly. So let's talk a little bit about Layla, the 2-year-old child in this situation. Layla Daniel was born on the 18th of July 2013. Layla also had an older sister called Millie, who was 4 years years old. And Layla was described as just like a sweet little angel. She warmed the hearts of everyone around her. She loved playing in her little toy kitchen. She loved watching the singing puppet on her favorite TV show, Yo Gabba Gabba. She loved hot dogs, chicken nuggets, strawberries and cream oatmeal. However, unfortunately for Layla, she had a very chaotic start to life. Her mom, Tessa Daniel, had been struggling with a variety of different issues. Tessa, as we know, was in the foster care system herself, and she had not had it easy growing up. She became addicted to drugs at just the age of 16. She also found herself homeless, and she had been in and out of multiple bad relationships. Tessa's life had gone in the completely opposite direction of Jennifer's. And because of Tessa's life, because it was so chaotic, that meant that her children's life was also chaotic. Layla and Millie had a very disruptive childhood, and social services were on Tessa from the moment she gave birth, because Tessa moved from home to home, living with various friends and acquaintances. She would leave her young children, Millie and Layla, in the care of people she barely knew, which is obviously incredibly dangerous. And social services had been monitoring the situation for the first 2 years of Layla's life, but up until this moment, they had never intervened. Don't ask me why, because I feel like they should have. And then Tessa fell pregnant with her third child. And Tessa actually wanted to turn her life around. It was almost like this was a little bit of a wake-up call for her. However, in January of 2015, whilst Tessa was still pregnant, and just before Layla's second birthday, this is when Tessa was arrested and charged with conspiracy to distribute drugs. And after Tessa was arrested, her 2 children were taken off of her, and they were sent to live with their great-grandmother, Peggy. And Peggy was such a sweet woman. Peggy was described as pretty much the only stable thing in Millie and Layla's life. Peggy genuinely cared for these 2 little girls. She wanted the best for them. However, there was a problem. Peggy lived in a retirement home, and in this senior living community that she was living in, it wasn't allowed for children to live permanently there. So because of this, Peggy had no other option but to place the 2 children in the state's custody, which is how they both ended up in the foster care system. So now the state needed to find a new home for both Millie and Layla. The state first looked at the extended family of the 2 girls, but there was no one suitable. And it was in April of 2015, 3 months after Tessa's arrest, that Jennifer Rosenbaum came across the case. It was when Jennifer found those documents in the courtroom, and it was when Jennifer decided that she would stop at no costs to foster Layla, but also Millie. Like, she wanted both of them. So Jennifer made use of her contacts in the DA's office. Jennifer really started to take advantage of her position, and her contacts in the DA's office gave her the details of the caseworker that was working on the case of Millie and Layla, who was a woman called Samantha White, who makes my blood boil. Samantha White, oh my god, she makes so many failings in today's case. Even though she never did anything with her own hands to the 2 girls, she is just as culpable, in my opinion, for today's case. So Jennifer reached out to Samantha about Millie and Layla. She phoned Samantha up and was like, "Hi, I've come across the foster case for Millie and Layla Daniel. Are they still available?" Like she's literally ordering something over the phone. And Samantha goes, "Oh, yes, they most definitely are." And Jennifer was like, perfect. I am going to make these children mine. And obviously Jennifer has had her application to become a foster parent denied on 2 separate occasions now. So how is she going to go about fostering these 2 girls? Well, this is when she decides to take advantage of a loophole in the system. Because when fostering, there is something called fictive kinship. And I had never heard of this before, this case, but fictive kinship is basically allowing somebody who is not related by blood or marriage to foster and look after a child. So, for example, a close family friend or a neighbor, a colleague, someone that you know and the child knows and the child trusts, to make it easier on the child so the child doesn't have to go to a stranger. Does that make sense? And obviously, having a child go to someone like a blood relative or or someone that has fictive kinship is the best situation. And as soon as the system recognizes a person as a fictive kinship, this allows you to bypass a lot of the usual fostering process. It basically lets you skip a few background checks and searches and stuff. But the thing is, people like Jennifer take advantage of things like this. And she thought, I knew Tessa for a very short period of time when we were children. I can basically make out that we were best friends growing up, that we were in care together. And obviously that is not what this fictive kinship is all about, but Jennifer wanted to take advantage of it. So at this point, Tessa, she's obviously been arrested, but right now she has been released on bail. And she is allowed visitation to her two daughters, Millie and Layla, but she is not allowed full custody right now. And this is when Jennifer sent Tessa a DM and she got straight to the point and she said, I want to foster your children. And Tessa was like, what the hell? Who is this woman? Like, literally, Jennifer just got straight to the point. She went, hi, remember me? I want to foster your children. And at first, Tessa didn't remember Jennifer at all, because I really want to stress that they were only together in foster care for a few months when they were young children. So this is when Jennifer said, oh, you don't remember me? We were in foster care together. We were so close. We were basically like best friends in foster care. And this is obviously not true. But eventually, Tessa did jog her memory and she remembered Jennifer. So Tessa looked into Jennifer. She checked her social media and just what she could find on the internet. And this is when Tessa discovered that Jennifer had done really well for herself. She had a very successful career. Tessa saw pictures of Jennifer at her job, in the courtroom, working in the military, going to gatherings and parties with very important people. And from what Tessa could find on social media and the internet, Jennifer seemed like an incredible person. Someone that was really open, warm, friendly, successful, driven. And Tessa thought, maybe this would be the best thing. Maybe it would be the best thing for my children, for Jennifer to foster them. I mean, there is a loose connection there. They did kind of know each other in foster care, and Jennifer seems like an incredible person. Wouldn't it be better for Layla and Millie to go to someone that I at least kind of know and seems very nice and successful than a complete stranger? And Tessa replied to Jennifer's messages and said, oh, that would be so amazing if you could care for my girls. It would make me feel so much more comfortable. Tessa also said that her two daughters meant the world to her, and even though they were going into foster care, she was going to do everything in her power to get them back. She also went on to say to Jennifer, quote, if they have to be away from me for a while, I would much rather them be with you. You are literally the biggest blessing. So Tessa thought that everything was going to work out, but that could not be further from reality. So Tessa messaged her caseworker, Samantha White, and told her she should make it a top priority to make Jennifer a fictive kinship carer. Tessa said that Jennifer was an old friend, that they knew each other from foster care when they were younger, and that she knew and trusted Jennifer, which was obviously not true, complete lie. And this is exactly what Samantha did. She made Jennifer a fictive kinship foster carer, and Jennifer has managed to manipulate the whole system into getting her own way. This now means that Jennifer and her husband Joseph are now foster carers. So the preparations were put in place for both Millie and Layla to be placed in Jennifer's care. However, Jennifer and Joseph are not allowed full custody of the two girls straight away because they're first-time foster parents. There needs to be an adjustment period. So first, a trial needs to take place. At this point, Millie and Layla are living with an experienced foster carer, a woman called Patricia. And Patricia, she's kind of like a halfway house for foster children. Her job is to help integrate children into their new foster families and to make the transition as smooth as possible. So Millie and Layla are currently in this like halfway house situation with Patricia, and Patricia was observing the behavior of the two girls. And she described Millie, who is 4 years old, as acting very grown up, way more mature than she should be at only 4 years old. But she suspected that Millie had to grow up because of her circumstances of her upbringing. Millie was also described as very protective over her younger sister Layla, which again, given the chaos that they have come from, you can understand that. But other than that, Millie seemed like a normal 4-year-old. However, Layla, she's only 2 years old at this point. She was described as being very behind on her development. She's 2 years old, but she is still non-verbal. And at 2 years old, most children have already started talking. shocking. Layla was also described as having behavioral issues. She was quite angry as a child. She would get into fights with her sister. She would throw herself on the ground. She would kick and scream. She would bite and scratch her way out of situations. And she's 2, so she's a toddler, so toddlers throwing tantrums is not exactly the most unusual thing, but Layla's tantrums, they were a lot more severe and a lot more frequent than your average 2-year-old. Layla was also described as very timid, very nervous. She was also afraid of sudden loud noises and movements. Again, this is all clearly because of her traumatic upbringing. So that is what the 2 girls, their behavior, their demeanor, their personalities are like right now. So eventually it came to the time where Jennifer was allowed to have overnight stays with the 2 girls to start integrating them into her home. However, things did not go smoothly at all. Patricia straight away knew that something wasn't right. Because after these overnight stays, Patricia started noticing bruises on Layla's body. And not like regular bruises that a 2-year-old could get. So Patricia was like, yeah, I do not like the look of this. Like, something is not right. My gut is telling me something is not right. So the bruises were reported to social services and the caseworker, Samantha White. Now, at this point, Patricia didn't think that there was any abuse going on or anything like that. Like, her mind didn't even go there. She just thought that these bruises were occurring on Layla because of negligence. However, these bruises were reoccurring. Layla especially, but Millie as well, they both had bruises on their body. So Patricia was getting extremely concerned. But not just that, the 2 girls, Millie and Layla, they were still allowed visitation to their biological mom, Tessa, and also their great-grandmother, Peggy. And whenever the 2 girls came back from Tessa's home or Peggy's home, they never had bruises on them. But every single time they came back from Jennifer's, there were new bruises. So this was a Jennifer-only thing. Patricia was really concerned now, so she reported the bruises again to the caseworker, Samantha White, but she was ignored. And you would think that if 2 children keep coming back from a potential foster carer's home with bruises all over them, you would think that that would be a red flag and that those potential foster parents should not get custody. But Samantha, she just ignored the whole situation. Like, I seriously don't understand this woman. So Samantha, she's obviously the caseworker, and because she's the caseworker, she has to make mandatory monthly checks. I mean, sometimes she actually goes over more than once a month. And whenever Samantha went to check on the 2 girls when they were at Jennifer's home, she was completely manipulated by Jennifer. Because Samantha would do the bare minimum, you know. She would say, oh, there's been some reports of bruising. Like, what's all that about? And Jennifer would just make excuse after excuse for the bruises. Jennifer would just say, oh, you know what kids are like. They fall over, they fight. She fell down the stairs. It's no big deal. It was a one-time thing. And Samantha just blindly believed Jennifer. And that is like a big no-no. If these children are only getting bruises with Jennifer, you don't believe a bloody thing she says. Samantha even took a look at the bruises herself, made a report about them, and in her report, she actually said that they were, quote, pretty much gone. But not only that, Samantha was also receiving pressure from Jennifer's political friends. Remember Mary, the assistant DA and the judge that Jennifer used to work for? Well, Mary, she's this powerful politician. She has a lot of influence. And she starts to put pressure on Samantha to speed up the fostering process and approve Jennifer as a full-time carer without the necessary checks. And guess what? Samantha did just that. Samantha ignored every single red flag that has been brought up to her about Jennifer, and she approved Jennifer as a full-time foster carer. It's all very corrupt, and I'm just like, what the hell? Like, what is Mary's deal here? Why is Mary even involved? Why does Mary care? So Samantha closed the case about the bruises and the red flags, and no further investigation was made into the red flags that were brought forward. So now Jennifer Rosenbaum and her husband Joseph Rosenbaum have been made full-time carers of both Millie Daniel and Layla Daniel. And things now go downhill so quickly, because in July of 2015, Jennifer has now been made the full-time carer of both Layla and Millie. Jennifer's behaviour completely changes. She no longer pretends to be best friends with Tessa. the biological mom. She actually completely cuts off Tessa. Jennifer told Tessa that the children were no longer allowed to see their own mom, and that this would be the best thing for the children to get the children settled into Jennifer's home. Jennifer also denied visitation rights to the great-grandmother, Peggy. Jennifer wants to just isolate these two children and not allow them to have access to anyone from their prior life. Jennifer also threw a house party for the two girls to celebrate that they have moved in. Jennifer invited all of her powerful politician friends. She really did just see Millie and Layla as like pawns in her game. She just wanted bragging rights and show them off. She just wanted to appear like a family person. And Jennifer, surprisingly, actually did invite Tessa and Peggy to this party, but just to keep up appearances. And this just really breaks my heart. But Layla and Millie, every single time they saw their mom at the party, they tried to run up to their mom, but every single time Jennifer would block them. She wouldn't allow Millie and Layla anywhere near their mom. Every single time they got close, Jennifer would just tear them away. So things go on like this now for a few weeks. Millie and Layla are denied access to their biological mother, and because of this, their behavior just completely changes and they both start to act out. They were throwing tantrums, screaming and shouting, acting violently. They refused to listen to anything that Jennifer said, and this is not how Jennifer pictured motherhood. She wanted these two girls to fit perfectly into their life. So because the two girls were not perfect human beings, Jennifer started to punish them. She started punishing them, hoping that they would conform to her perfect family fantasy. And I need to warn you all now, this is where this case gets very, very difficult to listen to. Because Jennifer, for some reason, she particularly disliked Layla, the 2-year-old. Don't ask me why, but she really disliked Layla. I mean, she disliked Millie as well, but there was something about Layla. Maybe it was because Layla was still non-verbal, so Jennifer found it harder to control her. And instead of showing her love and nurturing her, caring for her, showing Layla that where she was living now was a safe space, helping her to come out of her shell and develop, instead of doing all of that, Jennifer decided to harm Layla. Whenever Layla misbehaved, Jennifer would grab her by her wrist and drag her to her room and lock her inside. She would also drag Layla up and down the stairs by her arm. And we have to remember that she's only 2 years old and she's being dragged around this house by her arm. She would also physically spank Layla all of the time. She would twist her arm as punishment. And Jennifer would also throw Layla down onto the bed and whip her with a leather belt. Again, I just want to remind you all that she's 2 years old. She would also kick little Layla when she was on the floor. And these punishments, they were getting worse. They were getting more extreme. And Layla is just a poor, defenseless, tiny little 2-year-old. What goes through anyone's mind to throw a 2-year-old down on a bed and whip them and kick them, drag them around? What goes through someone's brain to do that? Jennifer is a monster. It's literally like Jennifer is throwing the tantrum here. She's accusing Millie and Layla of acting out and throwing tantrums, blah, blah, blah. But it's actually Jennifer that is the one that is throwing her toys out of the pram here. Because Layla and Millie are not perfect human beings, they are not behaving themselves properly, according to Jennifer. Jennifer is the one throwing a tantrum and attacking them. And unfortunately, it wasn't just Layla that was receiving these punishments. Layla definitely received the worst of it, but Millie was also facing these physical punishments. And this really does just break my heart, because if you remember, I said that Millie was very protective over Layla. So Millie witnessed the abuse of her younger sister. And Millie, she's only 4 years old. She witnessed her sister being abused and she ran to defend her little sister. And that's just so brave. This little 4-year-old is running to protect her sister, to try and step in between the abusive monster Jennifer and Layla. But because Millie was trying to defend her little sister, because she stepped between them, Millie then got beaten as well. And Millie, she can talk. She's a risk. She could tell someone about this abuse. So Jennifer threatened Millie and said that she would be beaten more severely if she ever did tell anyone. And Millie was so scared. She was scared for herself. She was scared for her sister. So Millie never said a word to anyone. And Jennifer, as time was going on, she was getting more and more confident about the abuse because she was getting away with it. She also had Samantha White, the caseworker, pretty much in her pocket. So now Jennifer decides to punish Millie and Layla at every possible opportunity. Jennifer set up this huge, complicated household rules system. And these rules would change all the time. They were the most ridiculous rules you would ever even think of. And if Millie or Layla ever broke any one of these rules, they would get severely punished. And these rules were absolutely ridiculous. For example, if Millie or Layla took too long to get dressed, they would be beaten. If either one of them fell asleep in the car, they would get beaten. If either one of them ate too much food, they would get beaten. And I'm like, what the hell? How do you expect young children and toddlers to be quick getting dressed? Or how do you expect them to not fall asleep in the car? What kind of rules are these? If there was ever a time where Millie was not doing something fast enough, Jennifer would jump on her, twist her ankle and sit on it. There was another time where Millie refused to eat her dinner. So Jennifer made Millie eat mashed potatoes until she vomited. And then Jennifer forced Millie to then eat the vomit. Oh yeah, Jennifer is the definition of a monster. Was that not clear? And we've spoken a lot about Jennifer, but what about the husband, Joseph? Because we haven't exactly spoken about him yet, have we? Well, it turns out that Joseph was fully aware of all of this abuse. He was there the whole time. He knew everything. And he was never once concerned with how his wife was treating these children. He supported her actions 100%. And whilst it is definitely Jennifer that is the driving force behind this abuse, she is the one doing 99% of the abuse. It has been said that Joseph would sometimes raise his hand to the two young girls. So Joseph, in my eyes, he's just as evil because he is an adult in this situation. He's not brainwashed or manipulated by Jennifer in any way, and he could have put a stop to this. And he's also joining in. So yeah, he's just as evil. We are now in August of 2015, well over a month into the fostering. And Millie and Layla's biological mom, Tessa, is becoming incredibly concerned because she's been completely cut off. She's incredibly suspicious about this whole thing. She thought that she could trust Jennifer. So Tessa is constantly getting in contact with Jennifer, asking for visitation. But Jennifer just kept denying it. Even though Tessa is allowed by the court visitation, Tessa would ask for update photos of her two girls just to have something. And Jennifer would send photos of Millie out and about doing various things. But when it came to Layla, Tessa soon realized that every single photo that Jennifer was sending of Layla was an old photo, not a current one. And Tessa was like, no. I want to see a current photo of my young girl. And after demanding a new photo of Layla, Jennifer eventually sent one. But in the photo, Layla had a black eye. And I think right there, it just tells you how confident Jennifer is that she is going to get away with this abuse. Because who the hell takes a photo of a child with a black eye and sends it to their biological mom? That is just so obvious that abuse is happening. Plus, you've taken a photo. There is physical evidence there. Literally, there's a paper trail. You have now sent that photo to the biological mom. But Jennifer seems to think in her head that she's going to get away with all of this. She probably thinks that her powerful politician friends and Samantha, the caseworker in her pocket, will just allow her to do what she wants. Because Tessa, after seeing this photo of Layla with the black eye, reported this to Samantha White, the caseworker. But the injury was never looked into. I'm sorry. No. I have a bone to pick with Samantha. I really, really do. Who doesn't look into a child that has a black eye when it's your job to do so? But the black eye wasn't the only problem with the photo of Layla. Layla also looked incredibly underweight. She just looked not in a good way. Tessa was still demanding visitation, but at every single turn she was denied by Jennifer. There was always some sort of reason or excuse of why Tessa couldn't visit. One day Layla had a fever. Another day Layla was at gymnastics class. And it wasn't just Tessa that was suspicious of the treatment of Layla. Lots of other people had started to notice the mistreatment of Layla. And it's just really, really frustrating that so many people saw this poor 2-year-old girl covered in bruises. She has a black eye, but no one reports anything, and it's just so infuriating. But now we need to talk a little bit more about the caseworker Samantha White. And if your blood doesn't already boil about Samantha, it will now. Because Samantha, she's absolutely useless. Time and time again, she has had the opportunity to save both Layla and Millie from this situation, yet she does nothing. She had to visit the home at least once a month, if not more. And this was her opportunity to intervene, but she never did. In September of 2015, 2 months into the fostering, Samantha noticed bruises on Layla's leg. Jennifer spun a story that Layla had got into a fight at school, and Samantha believed it. In fact, Samantha even got into contact with the daycare that Layla was apparently attending and the same daycare that she had apparently gotten into a fight with another child with. However, that daycare said that Layla had never even enrolled there. Yeah, you heard that right. Layla didn't even go to daycare. And Samantha, you've got to give her a bit of credit. She confronted Jennifer about this. She said, I phoned up the daycare. They said that Layla doesn't even go there. So then Jennifer just spun a load of other lies and said, oh, it's just all a big misunderstanding. She's recently changed daycare. That's why. So Jennifer gave Samantha the name of the quote, new daycare. So Samantha phoned the new daycare to inquire about this apparent fight that Layla had gotten into. Yet again, when she phoned this new daycare, Layla wasn't enrolled there. And Jennifer spun lies like this time and time again. And Samantha did the bare minimum. She never really did anything other than phone up a daycare to inquire that Layla was enrolled there. But then she didn't do anything else. She never followed up on anything. She didn't see any of this as a red flag. She didn't see Jennifer lying as a red flag. She didn't see bruises on a child's skin as a red flag. Time and time again, Samantha just closed the case. No further investigation was made. Then we get to October 2015, 3 months into the fostering, and somehow things have gotten worse because Jennifer keeps getting away with everything. So because she keeps getting away with everything, the abuse and punishments are only getting worse. Jennifer would now strike Layla with extremely heavy objects. She would strike her across her stomach, her back, her thighs, anywhere where clothes would cover. And all of these attacks were incredibly vicious. Jennifer would strike Layla over and over again. There was so much malice coming from Jennifer to this 2-year-old child. It's something that I really struggle to wrap my head around because all of this has escalated so quickly. Jennifer has only had these 2 children in her care full time for 3 months. There was one time when Jennifer was beating Layla so hard with a heavy object that she actually broke Layla's leg. So when Layla was being beaten, she actually pulled her knees up to her body to protect herself. And the object that Jennifer was using as her choice of weapon struck Layla in her shin and completely fractured the bone. Jennifer did take Layla to the hospital to treat this, and when the hospital inquired about how Layla had broken her leg, Jennifer just said, oh, she did it in gymnastics class. Yeah, gymnastics. Layla doesn't even go to gymnastics. I mean, she technically does. She sits on the sideline watching her sister, but it's just unbelievable. And Samantha was once again forced to investigate the broken leg. And I'm sure that that was a huge burden on her. So Samantha turned up at the gymnastics class and she just sat there in the back of the room. She didn't even talk to one person. She didn't talk to the person leading the gymnastics class. She didn't talk to any of the other parents that were there, none of the children, nothing. Samantha just attended this gymnastics class and sat in the back of the room. The only reason why she attended that class was to tick a box to say that she had gone. Because if Samantha had just bothered to talk to the gymnastics teacher, she would have learned that Layla doesn't even go there. Layla doesn't even participate in gymnastics. So yes, Jennifer is doing all of this, and of course Jennifer is a monster here, but if Samantha had just done her job properly, Layla and Millie would have been taken out of Jennifer's care. It just seems like time and time again, these two children are being failed. But did things stop there? No, of course they didn't. Because just a few weeks later, before Layla's broken leg has even healed, Jennifer now broke Layla's arm. And it was in a very similar way. Jennifer was beating Layla with a heavy object, and Layla brought her arms up to probably protect her face. And the heavy object struck her in the arm and again fractured a bone. But did Jennifer take Layla to the hospital this time? No. Jennifer realized that she wouldn't be able to explain away another broken bone. So instead, she just left Layla with an untreated broken arm, which must have been incredibly painful. And from that point forward, Layla's arm was severely deformed, which any competent caseworker would have seen. But again, Samantha, when she was making her visits, she didn't even notice. So now we get to the 2nd of November 2015, 4 months into the fostering. And this really was the last chance that anyone had to save Layla. Because on this day, Samantha was making one of her monthly checkups on the two girls. And at every single one of these checkups that Samantha did, she was supposed to check the children over for any cuts, bruises, any kind of marks on their body. And for non-verbal children like Layla, Samantha was supposed to look under her clothes to check that no abuse was happening, because the child can't communicate whether abuse is happening or not. But what happened on the 2nd of November? Samantha got there for her checkup. She obviously needed to check beneath Layla's clothing, but Jennifer just said that Layla was taking a nap. So Samantha just popped her head around the door, saw that Layla was in bed, and thought, that's fine by me. I don't need to check her. And Samantha just walked out of the door and said she would be back in a month. And if Samantha had even just walked up to the bed, not even done like a proper full assessment, if she had just walked up to the bed and actually looked a little bit closer to Layla, she would have seen that Layla was lying in bed because she was so badly injured. She was covered in bruises. She now has multiple broken bones. She barely has the energy to move. It's just absolutely horrific to think about. And Samantha could have saved Layla in that moment. In fact, on that visit, Samantha didn't even check over Millie properly, because we haven't really spoken that much about Millie throughout this video, because Layla does seem to get the brunt of the abuse. But Millie is also being abused every single day. And Millie was also covered in bruises on this day, on the 2nd of November. And Samantha didn't even bother to look at Millie. And we now sadly get to the tragic events of today's case, because just 2 weeks later, Jennifer was actually celebrating her 27th birthday. But this day was far from a celebration, and it would end in the worst way imaginable. Because on this day, a 911 call was placed by Jennifer, and she told the operator that her foster daughter was choking on some food and couldn't breathe.
What's going on there?
I have a toddler, a foster daughter that I just got. She was choking, and I tried to do the Heimlich on her, and she's still breathing, but it doesn't look good.
On this call, Jennifer was trying to make out that this really terrible accident had happened, that Layla was choking on a piece of chicken and her airways were blocked. Now, on the 911 call, Jennifer was talked through how to unblock her airways and also how to do CPR. But when paramedics arrived at the scene, they were absolutely horrified by what they found, because they saw 2-year-old Layla Daniel lying on the floor, completely unresponsive, and she was covered head to toe in bruises. She was in an absolute terrible state. Paramedics asked Jennifer how the hell this had happened. This was not normal bruising. And this is when Jennifer came out with another massive lie. She said that Layla had only arrived in her care a couple of days prior, and Layla had come from an abusive home, which could not be further from the truth. And in that moment, paramedics chose to believe Jennifer, and they did everything that they could to resuscitate Layla at the scene. But then she was rushed to hospital, and at the hospital, everything was done to try and save Layla. But there was nothing that could be done. It was too late. And 2-year-old Layla Daniel was pronounced dead. It's just heartbreaking. I still cannot wrap my head around how quickly everything escalated, and it just makes me so angry because there were so many chances to save that poor defenseless little girl, and Jennifer is just the definition, the epitome of evil. Then afterwards, whilst Jennifer was at the hospital with Layla, this is when Joseph turned up, the other evil person in this case that just allowed this all to happen. And Joseph had 4-year-old Millie with him. And this is when 4-year-old Millie learned that her sister was dead. And my heart just breaks for Millie so much because she was so protective over her sister. However, this is also when doctors at the hospital were closely examining Layla's injuries, and they were just as horrified as the paramedics, and they knew that these injuries were not normal, so they called law enforcement straight away. Because Layla had severe bruising all over her stomach and inner thighs. She also had a deformed arm from an untreated broken arm. She had 2 black eyes, open wounds on her face from being beaten. She even had a piece of skin missing from one of her ears. The cause of death was not choking, and the police ordered an immediate autopsy. And the results of the autopsy were just absolutely horrific. The autopsy obviously revealed that Layla had an untreated broken arm, as well as her broken leg, but also a broken rib. She had bruising all over her entire body, which included 22 injuries to her head and neck, 11 injuries to her torso, and many injuries all over her legs. But the worst part, Layla also had severe damage to her internal organs. She had injuries to her small and large intestines, which caused a lot of internal bleeding. But not just that, because Jennifer was beating Layla so hard with heavy objects over Layla's stomach, she actually managed to split Layla's pancreas in 2. Yeah, you heard that right. She actually split Layla's pancreas in 2. That is how hard she was beating this 2-year-old girl. I don't even know how she did that. And it turns out that the lacerated pancreas and the loss of blood caused from that was ultimately the cause of death. And once the autopsy results were revealed, thankfully both Jennifer and Joseph were arrested. Millie, of course, was taken off of them, placed back into foster care, and she was placed in the care of Patricia, which was the original foster carer with that halfway house kind of thing. And after being with Patricia for just a couple of days and recovering slightly from what has happened, Millie started to open up about what had happened to her. Millie started opening up about the abuse that both her and her sister had gone through. Millie was also covered head to toe in bruises. Millie also had an untreated broken arm, which had been inflicted by Jennifer in a very similar way to Layla's untreated broken arm, hit with a heavy object. So it seems like in the end, Millie was being treated just as badly as Layla. Joseph and Jennifer were immediately charged with murder, and they were held in custody awaiting trial. But after all of this happened, Jennifer, unsurprisingly, went straight on the defensive. She tried to make up all kind of excuses of where the injuries came from on Layla, but also Millie as well. She actually blamed Tessa, the biological mom, and said that Tessa had inflicted all of these wounds, when Tessa hasn't even seen her children in months. Jennifer also blamed the paramedics that arrived at the scene for Layla's injuries about them performing CPR a bit too aggressively. But not just that, and this really gets me angry. Jennifer's politician friends came to her defense. Yeah, all of her powerful, influential people that she knew at work, they said that Jennifer wasn't capable of doing something like this, that it must have been a setup and she was framed. And I'm like, wow, how can you come out and defend someone like this? However, 4 years later, in July of 2019, Jennifer finally went to trial. And this is when the truth finally got revealed. Because these politicians that had come to Jennifer's defense, they were actually put on the stand. And they were confronted with photos of Layla's injuries. And most of them actually broke down in tears. And they finally saw the monster that Jennifer was. But throughout the trial, the failings in the system were highlighted. Samantha White was called to testify. And even when she was on the stand, she tried to defend her actions. She tried to say that the injuries weren't that bad. It was just like a couple of bruises, and kids get bruises. Samantha actually did get fired from her job, but that was it. That was it. Joseph was apparently torn up throughout the whole trial. And it's like, oh, so sad. But it was proven that he knew about everything. He just stood by and watched and did nothing. Occasionally participated himself. And Tessa, Layla's biological mom, was also called to testify. And whilst Tessa did fail Layla earlier on in life, she had no idea what was happening to both of her daughters at the hands of Jennifer. And I'm sure some people may think that, well, Tessa was the one that gave permission for Jennifer to be fictive kinship. And yes, that is true. Tessa did make mistakes. However, it was up to the system and the foster care system to vet Jennifer as fictive kinship foster carer. Jennifer should never have even been approved. And that's on people like Samantha, because it's their job to realize what situation is best for children, what is safe, what is not. And then finally, Millie gave evidence, and she was currently 9 years old when she took the stand, and Millie was so brave. You can actually listen to some of her testimony on YouTube, and it's incredibly emotional.
How do you feel about talking about the day that Layla died?
Kinda sad.
How do you feel talking about living at the Rosenbaum's house?
Same thing.
Do you like talking about living at the Rosenbaum's house?
No.
And the defense tried to tear down Millie, tried to say that she was an unreliable witness. And I'm like, really? Leave the poor girl alone. She's been through enough. But in the end, both Jennifer and Joseph were found guilty. Jennifer was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, and Joseph was sentenced to 50 years in prison. And my heart just truly breaks for Millie. It really, really does. She has gone through so much. And even at only 4 years old, one of her main priorities was her little sister Layla. At only 4 years old, she was already defending her little sister, trying to stop the abuse. And she is so brave. She has gone through so much, and wherever she is today, I wish her the best. She deserves the world. And I want to end this video focusing on the victim of today's case. Layla Daniel was described as an amazing, sweet girl who warmed the hearts of everyone around her. She was a 2-year-old who wanted nothing more than just to have a normal life. She loved playing with her little toy kitchen, and she loved her favorite TV show, Yo Gabba Gabba, and she loved spending time with her sister Millie. And Layla's life was cut incredibly short before she even had the chance to develop into the amazing person I'm sure she would have turned out to be. She was taken far too soon. She was only 2 years old. And that brings us to the end of today's absolutely heartbreaking case. So as always, let me know your thoughts, theories and opinions, and don't forget to leave me your case suggestions in the comments down below, because I always want to know what you want to hear next. Thank you again to Matchmasters for sponsoring today's video, and I'll see you all in my next one. Bye.